An old woman tells her husband that if he walks across the kitchen floor after she mops again, she's going to kill him. The next time she mops the kitchen floor, he does it again. He gets the kitchen floor dirty and tracks water into the living room. She does as promised. Without saying a word, she goes to their bedroom, gets his pistol out of the closet, and shoots him dead in his recliner. Then she calls 911 and tells them, "I told my husband that if he walks through the kitchen after I mopped, then I would kill him. He didn't listen and I shot him." Emergency dispatch immediately sends an ambulance for the husband and a squad car for the wife. The chief of police hears about the call shortly afterward, thinks it's a rather strange story, so he drives to the house. When he gets there, his officers are still waiting outside. He asks, "Officers, why haven't you gone inside and arrested the woman?" They reply, "Sir, we can't go in now. The kitchen floor is still wet." 1. A Chinese couple emigrated to America. When Mr. and Mrs. Wong had twin boys, they wanted to name them after two great Americans. And since Mr. Wong had always been fascinated with aviation, he decided to name them Orville and Wilbur Wright. When told them that they couldn't give them a surname other than their own, they took the case to court. After hearing their impassioned argument, the judge said, "As much as I would love to allow this, I simply can't. In American law, two Wongs don't make a Wright." 2. The tax office suspected a fishing boat owner wasn't paying proper wages to his deckhands and sent an agent to investigate him. Agent: "I need a list of your employees and how much you pay them." Boat owner: "Well, there's Tom, my first mate. He's been with me for 3 years. I pay him $400 a week, plus 1/5 of the catch." Boat owner: "And there's Bob, the deckhand. He's been with me for a year. I pay him $300 a week, plus 1/5 of the catch." Boat owner: Then there's the mentally challenged guy. He works about 16 hours a day and does about 80% of the work. I can't pay him very much because the boat expenses are high, and sometimes we don't catch anything. Every now and then, I'll buy him a bottle of rum and he gets to sleep with my wife occasionally." Auditor: "That's the guy I want to talk to, the mentally challenged one." Boat owner: "That'll be me. What did you want to know?" 3. At the end of the tax year, the IRS sends an inspector to audit the books of a local hospital. While the IRS agent was checking the books, he turns to the CFO of the hospital and says, "Noticed you buy a lot of bandages. What do you do with the end of the roll when there's too little left to be of any use?" "Good question," the CFO noted. "We save them up and send them back to the bandage company, and every now and then they send us a free box of bandages." The auditor looked somewhat disappointed that his unusual question had a practical answer, but he continued in his obnoxious tone. "What about all these plaster purchases? What do you do with what's left after setting a cast on a patient?" The CFO, realizing the inspector was trying to trap him with an unanswerable question, replies, "Ah, yes, we save it and send it back to the manufacturer, and every now and then they send us a free package of plaster." "I see," the auditor replied, thinking hard about how he could fluster the know-it-all CFO. "Well," he went on, "what do you do with all the leftover foreskins from the circumcisions you perform?" And without missing a beat, the CFO answers, "Here, too, we do not waste. What we do is save all the little foreskins and send them to the IRS office, and about once a year they send us a complete dick." 4. Ever since he was a little kid, Bob always had one goal in life: to become a train conductor. Finally, when he grew up, he achieved his goal and became the conductor of the Happy Town train. He was so excited to conduct the train that he decided to see how fast he can go. He went faster and faster until the train derailed and killed one person. Bob was taken to trial and was found guilty of murder, sentenced to death by electric chair. Now, Happy Town was no ordinary town. They strongly believed in religion. This caused the town's special rule. If a person survives the electric chair for 15 minutes straight, it is considered divine intervention, and they are free to go. So Bob is sent to the electric chair. The executioner offers him his final meal. Bob asks for a single banana. Then, the executioner hooks Bob up to the electric chair and turns it on. 15 minutes goes by, and Bob is still alive and well, so he is let go. 2 days later, Bob manages to get his job back as conductor for the Happy Town train. Just like before, he decides to see how fast he could go. He goes faster and faster until the train derails once again, killing 2 people this time. He is arrested and sentenced to murder and death by the electric chair. Bob shows up to the chair and is offered his last meal by the executioner again. This time, Bob asks for 2 bananas. He eats the bananas and the executioner turns on the chair. Lo and behold, 15 minutes later, Bob had not yet come even close to death. The executioner let him go, and Bob went on his way. Around a week goes by, and Bob manages to get his job back as the conductor. Happy Town must have been really desperate for train conductors to hire him once again. Just like the last 2 times, Bob goes too fast and details the train, killing 3 people. He is arrested and sentenced to murder and death by electric chair. When Bob arrived for his execution, he asked for 3 bananas for his final meal, but the executioner recognized him and was annoyed. The executioner told Bob, "I've had enough of this. I'm not just going to let you get by murdering people again and again, so I'm not letting you have your magic bananas that somehow keep you alive." The executioner then attached Bob to the chair without giving him his bananas and turned the chair on. 15 minutes goes by, and Bob is still sitting there as if nothing is going on. Astounded, the executioner stares at Bob and exclaims, "How are you doing this?" Bob replies, "The bananas have nothing to do with it. I'm just a really bad conductor." 5. They always ask at the doctor's office why you are there, and you have to answer in front of others what's wrong, and sometimes it is embarrassing. There's nothing worse than a doctor's receptionist who insists you. Not tell her what is wrong with you in a room full of other patients. I know most of us have experienced this, and I love the way this old guy handled it. An 86-year-old man walked into a crowded waiting room and approached the desk. The receptionist said, "Yes, sir, what are you seeing the doctor for today?" "There's something wrong with my dick," he replied. The receptionist became irritated and said, "You shouldn't come into a crowded waiting room and say things like that." "Why not? You asked me what was wrong and I told you," he said. The receptionist replied, "Now you've caused some embarrassment in this room full of people. You should have said there is something wrong with your ear or something and discussed the problem further with the doctor in private." The man replied, "You shouldn't ask people questions in a room full of strangers if the answer could embarrass anyone." The man walked out, waited several minutes, and then re-entered. The receptionist smiled smugly and asked, "Yes." "There's something wrong with my ear," he stated. The receptionist nodded approvingly and smiled, knowing he had taken her advice. "And what is wrong with your ear, sir?" "I can't censor out of it," he replied. The waiting room erupted in laughter. "Mess with seniors, and you're gonna lose." 6. Every morning, the CEO of a large bank in Manhattan walks to the corner for a shoe shine. He sits in an armchair, examines the Wall Street Journal, and the shoe shiner buffs his shoes to a mirror shine. One morning, the shoe shiner asks the CEO, "What do you think about the situation in the stock market?" The man answered arrogantly, "Why are you so interested in that topic?" The shoe guy replies, "I have millions in your bank," he says, "and I'm considering investing some of the money in the capital market." "What's your name?" asked the executive. "John H. Smith," was the reply. The CEO arrives at the bank and asks the manager of the customer department, "Do we have a client named John H. Smith?" "Certainly," answers the customer service manager. "He is a high-net-worth customer with $12.6 million in his account." The executive comes out, approaches the shoe shiner and says, Mr. Smith, I would like to invite you next Monday to be the guest of honor at our board meeting and tell us the story of your life. I am sure we could learn something from your life's experience. At the board meeting, the CEO introduces him to the board members. We all know Mr. Smith from the corner shoeshine stand, but Mr. Smith is also an esteemed customer. I invited him here to tell us the story of his life. I am sure we can learn from him. Mr. Smith began his story. I came to this country 50 years ago as a young immigrant from Europe with an unpronounceable name. I got off the ship without a penny. The first thing I did was change my name to Smith. I was hungry and exhausted. I started wandering around looking for a job, but to no avail. Fortunately, I found a coin on the sidewalk. I bought an apple. I had two options: eat the apple and quench my hunger, or start a business. I sold the apple for 25 cents and bought 2 apples with the money. I also sold them and continued in business. When I started accumulating a few dollars, I was able to buy a set of used brushes and shoe polish and started polishing shoes. I didn't spend a penny on entertainment or clothing. I just bought bread and some cheese to survive. I saved penny by penny. And after a while, I bought a new set of shoe brushes and polishes in different shades and expanded my clientele. I lived like a monk and saved penny by penny. After a while, I was able to buy an armchair so my clients could sit comfortably while I shined their shoes. And that brought me more clients. I didn't spend a penny on the joys of life. I kept saving every cent. A few years ago, when the previous shoe shiner on the corner decided to retire, I had already saved enough money to buy his shoe shine location at this great place. Finally, 6 months ago, my sister, who was a prostitute in Chicago, passed away and left me $12.6 million.